All right, so we have quite a number of people here, so we will just start a webinar. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So my name is 𝗂𝗃𝗿. I am the Information Coordinator of the Science and Technology Library section of IFLA. Thank you for coming to today's webinar, Climate Action in Canadian Libraries from Local Practice to National Strategy. Today it's truly, I say that every time, but it's always truly an honor for people to take an hour off their very busy work life to do a webinar for us to share the experience. So today we have Michelle from Ontario Library Association and Lita from Canadian Federation of Library Associations. So before we start, let me tell you what the section has in the coming. Oh, sorry. So something's wrong. Yes. Okay, good. Now I can go back to my slides. Our upcoming events that we will have a Wikipedia editing workshop with Wikimedia Korea at ix-T's annual conference in Seoul, and the information is here. We do not have to copy everything because it's online somewhere, and the link will be shared with you in the chat later. And during the World Library and Information Congress this year in Busan, South Korea, we also have a business meeting. This is the information. Also, you do not have to copy anything. That will be in the chat. This is just information I want you to have. And we have an open session co-hosted with several other units of IFLA. And this session is called Powering Sustainable Change, Rethinking Digital Research Infrastructure for Environmental Responsibility, Equity, and Innovation. That's a long title. Anyway, so this is our open session. Please come to our session, and we'll be very happy to see you there. And then, okay, so these are all this is our link tree, and you can find all the places where we can be found, essentially. That will also be shared with you in the chat, so do not panic. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and pass the time to colleagues in Canada. Michelle, are you able to share your screen?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Oh, yes. It's okay. It's okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Anna, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Lita and I are really happy to be here and to be invited by IFLA to speak about the work that we are doing. My name is 𝗟𝗲𝗿. I'm from the Ontario Library Association. I'm joined by my colleague, Lita Berry, who is representing the Canadian Federation of Library Associations today. And the title of our talk today is Climate Action in Canadian Libraries, but we really are speaking about the work that our associations are doing. So it's climate action in our Canadian Library Associations, and we're going to speak more about how we are enabling our members to learn from each other, to gather and grow community around climate, and to have more research and conversations in this area. So to start just with a little bit of context, I am coming from the Ontario Library Association. I see there are a few Canadians who have joined us today, but to give you some context, Ontario is a province of Canada. So we are the largest library association in Canada. We are a member association. We have just over 4,000 members. We're also the oldest. This year we are celebrating 125 years of the OLA, which is very exciting. Our members like to do many things, learning being at the top of that list. And at the end of January every year, we hold something called the OLA Super Conference. It is at the end of January in Toronto, exactly when everyone wants to come to snowy, freezing cold Toronto, but it is a great time. It warms your hearts and your brains if you ever get a chance to come to the OLA Super Conference. We also do a lot of learning through webinars and standalone events. Our members are very interested in networking. We have a mentor match program. We, of course, celebrate each other. We administer over 30 awards a year to librarians and library technicians, board members, library buildings, organizations across the province. This picture here is actually of our staff team. We have about 14 full-time staff here at OLA, and we work with between 400 and 500 volunteers per year. So Lita and I are going to give some context to our work and situate our organizations within our strategic plans, which helps to give some context to the work we do. It also gives you an idea of where climate action might fit into the priorities of our work. I'll go through this quickly, but last year OLA did launch our new 3-year strategic plan, which takes us through till 2028. And from that plan, we have 3 priorities that focus and organize our work. These are not numbered, but I will start in the upper right quadrant: invest in people, strengthen libraries, champion libraries, secure the future, and create value and build belonging. And of course, the key guiding principles around everything we do in the organization are equity, diversity, inclusion, access, and decolonization. And those principles really do surround all of the work that we do. And I'll refer more to that when we speak about what we're talking about in the climate action community. We do also use this as a bit of a rubric. So it helps us to determine what work we want to prioritize, because as you know, there are a lot of demands in the library sector, a lot of demands of our associations, and we are a small team. So we use this to help focus our efforts and decide what we have the capacity to do or what might need to be saved for the future. So when we're looking at how to approach an issue like climate action, we are situating that issue within these 3 goals. And I would say I see this popping up most in the area of creating value for our members, giving them space and community to talk about climate, and also investing in people, helping members of the library land learn more about climate action, climate research, how to engage in this work in the profession. So this is OLA's model. This is a new-ish model that we launched just last year, just to give you some idea of what this looks like for members who are engaging with OLA and how we organize our membership with 4,000 members. We have 3 connected layers in this model that you see here. In the center, we say is our anchor, what keeps us steady, which is our board and our staff. Surrounding that are our sectors, and those are where our members are coming to us from, where they live, where they work. And those are our public, academic, school, health, and special library sectors. Within each of those sectors, we do have councils and committees, and that is a really active part of OLA, an essential part of the work that we do in our governance. And at one point, OLA did have a climate action committee. And that was actually born out of work that was happening at our sister association in British Columbia, actually, with BCLA. And that committee at OLA was active for about 4 years. I think Lita was on that committee. They worked on a survey. They had very passionate and invested membership. But a committee is much more limited in terms of how many members are able to engage. And the work of a committee also limits the ability to have responsive conversations that might pop up around an issue. So this is where the outer layer of our model comes in, our communities of practice. And that new layer, the communities are flexible, they are cross-sector groups. These are spaces where members can come together around issues and passions and innovations that are happening in library land. And we designed that model to make it easier for members to jump in and get involved. Members can decide how much they want to contribute or how little. We certainly saw during pandemic, the capacity of members reducing, constricting a bit, and not being able to engage every month in a meeting or to join a committee. So the flexible model of the communities makes it easier for people to pop in as they need. People get to meet members across different sectors, not just their own, which is often very valuable to them and something unique that OLA does in our sector. And they create these spaces where they can learn and experiment and share ideas that hopefully will make their work stronger. I like to think about the communities as sandboxes where you can gather with colleagues from other sectors and talk through issues. And they are designed to be member-driven. Now, much of what I'm talking about here is kind of the gold star of what we hope they become, because as I said, this only just launched last year. So we are hoping that the members who belong to these committees really help to shape what they will become. We're only about 7 months into this model being launched. So we're in early days now. But we do have 5 communities of practice. And that is right off the bat a lie. Since this graphic was created, we've had 2 more grow. I like to think of the communities like gremlins. We fed them after midnight and they just keep springing up with new ideas. I'll talk more about the 2 when I get to the end. But we have so far Inclusive Libraries, which is building on our equity, diversity, inclusivity, and accessibility work. Climate Action, of course, which I'll speak more to. Indigenous librarianship, supporting workers in Indigenous communities and libraries, the Francophone community, which is strengthening French language, voices, and service, and technology, which of course is quite broad, exploring tools and trends and digital futures. And the two editions, and I say that knowing that there's probably a third that I'm forgetting about, but we have two strong editions that recently came in, one for a bookmobile community and one for a research community, which is specifically looking at research within the library sector. So we recognize, obviously, there is interest and opportunity to build these communities, but we're really hoping to build up on these initial communities that we planned and open things up once we have a really strong model that we can scale across the issues. I mentioned the communities of practice meet quarterly through Zoom. They do also have a message board on the OLA platform, and that functions very similar to a listserv. It is not a lot to look at, but I'm going to show you a couple screenshots just to show you. It looks probably very similar to many other platforms you have engaged on with a message board. You can post a question, you can take a poll, answer and search threads. In the climate action community, we currently have about 200 members, but it is open for any member, any of our 4,000 members to join and participate in. Right now, about half of this community is coming from our public library sector, and the remaining half is made up primarily by our academic and school sector, but there's representation from all 5 sectors. Each community does have a facilitator that helps them with their meetups, and they, together with the staff, are currently helping to drive the conversations in these spaces. So things that we've been sharing around climate are information that comes in through our channels. We're posting events, and our facilitators are, you can see Merle here is engaging in conversations, asking people to share information from their own spaces. Excuse me. We have only had one round of virtual meetups so far this year. So like I said, we're still very, very early days, still working through some growing pains. But the idea is that the meetups will be structured around a topic. So you may be asking, what are the topics? At our OLA Super Conference that occurred earlier this year, we did ask our members what they wanted to talk about within these communities. It was very lo-fi. It was a big poster board with Post-it notes where people could share what they wanted to hear. So this is a sampling of what we heard from our members who are interested in climate action. I'm happy to say Indigenous voices was at the top of that list. Indigenous voices in climate action, of course, very important to the conversation. Sustainable practices in cataloging, addressing climate anxiety in youth, which I'll speak more to in a moment, and school library climate inquiry partnerships, seed libraries, emergency preparedness, climate science literacy, AI and climate, and providing community education around solar panels, heat pumps, electric vehicles, and e-bikes. Now, one of the issues that popped up was addressing climate anxiety in youth. And when the facilitators and staff saw that, it sparked that we had another stakeholder member, an author member actually, who had recently written on this issue. And so we looked for another way where we could share and have a conversation around climate anxiety. And from that came an episode of our podcast. So OLA has a podcast that is published twice a month, every other week. It is called Library Land Loves. I think it is the reason why I am here today, because Anna heard the podcast and so invited us on to come and talk about that. It's just a great way to have conversations with different people on various topics and to be really quickly responsive to an issue that might be building up in the sector. So in this particular instance, we engaged with an author, Rochelle Strauss, who had written a children's book about addressing and talking with children about climate anxiety. And someone else from the book sector, Jen Knock, who is an editor and also a climate activist, to talk about how we can address climate anxiety, how we can have these conversations with both children and adults. It was a great episode, if I say so myself. We had excellent response from members and from the public. And it is one of those scenarios where it's an exemplar of kind of what we want to do with other topics, where we're pulling in people who are library land adjacent and also experts in different issues and areas that are of importance to the sector. And so that occurred, and I hope that you will give that a listen. And now I'm going to hold I'm going to hand the controls over to Lita.
Thanks, Michelle. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be with you here today. As mentioned, I'm 𝗿𝗵𝗿. I'm currently the chair of the Canadian Federation of Library Associations, the Fédération canadienne des associations de bibliothèques. And CFL, while OLA might be the oldest library association in Canada, CFLA is probably one of the youngest. So CFLA is recognizing 10 years of operations this year. It is an association that follows the work of a prior association that was titled the Canadian Library Association that dissolved about 10 years ago. And CFLA formed while OLA is a member-driven association, CFLA is a federation of associations. So we have library association members from across Canada representing all library sectors. And our mandate is really to be a united national voice for Canada's library community with very much a national policy focus. So whereas OLA does a lot of work around member engagement, learning, and development, CFLA strives to position libraries in national policy conversations. Go to the next slide. And very similar to OLA, CFLA's work in climate action is very much grounded in the association's current strategic plan. We are operating under a 2023 to 2027 strategic plan that identified climate action as one of our fundamental policy pillars. And in that work, we are striving to align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and position Canadian libraries as essential agents of social, environmental, and intellectual advancement. And our goal is really to promote cohesive national advocacy efforts that are going to impact public policy. And so once the CFLA board approved the new strategic plan, one of our first steps as an association was to create a climate action committee. And that committee was established in September of 2023. And I had the privilege of chairing that committee. And I think it really speaks to the importance of the role of libraries and library workers in this conversation, that shortly thereafter, after the formation of the committee, that we were successful in 2024 in receiving funding from Environment and Climate Change Canada, which granted CFLA a foundational $23,000 grant that was really an essential investment for us in the development of some scalable national climate literacy tools that were designed for library workers and libraries throughout Canada. And it's really this project and this toolkit that I'm going to focus on with our time that we have together today. So to begin our journey with this particular project, our committee started by surveying the community. So in spring of 2024, the committee surveyed library workers nationwide to determine how best to support local efforts. And the visualization that you see here on the screen is the representation of participation from individuals from across Canada. And while we had about 200 so people participate in the survey, the breakdown is actually quite representative of the population breakdown across the country. So the team felt that we had sort of a reasonable representation that presented a national perspective on needs and opportunities. And so the findings were really cohesive in terms of defining some of the areas of strongest demand. And again, CFLA is a cross-sector association, so our respondents for this survey included individuals working in academic, public, school library settings. And across all of those sectors, there was a clear identification of lack of capacity as being the key deterrent for libraries and library workers being involved in climate action work. And then further to that, you'll see that not knowing where to start was a real barrier, and a perceived lack of relevant expertise. Those were really the top three issues that were identified across the survey, which solidified our committee's sort of understanding that the primary demand would be for ready-to-use resources and guidance that would be applicable across all libraries in Canada. And so from that perspective, we started to break down our project into three key deliverables, recognizing that libraries have a key role to play in informing and engaging in mobilizing Canadians for climate action. And the development of these tools was really about supporting all libraries and all library workers. And I think that was a real strength, and it's a similar strength that we see at OLA with the community of practice of pulling together teams and folks who are coming to the issue from a variety of different perspectives, whether they are working in a university setting as a librarian, or they are serving community through a public or school library. Having that range of expertise at the table was really essential in terms of ensuring that we were developing tools that could support all libraries and all library workers. And we broke that work down into three key deliverables: a climate action brief that I'll share some more information about, as well as a climate action guide that had a focus on a collaboration toolkit, and a climate cafe program template. And all of the products of this grant are openly available on the CFLA website at the URL that you see here listed on the screen. In addition, of course, in Canada, we are a bilingual nation, and so all of these resources are available in French as well as English. And as I previously noted, CFLA's commitment to climate action is very much grounded in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So through this project, we sought to advance three key SDGs, of course, SDG 13 in terms of climate action, and you'll see that work materialized primarily through our climate action brief, as well as the national survey results insights, which we also published and shared with our library community. SDG 4 in terms of quality education, and really the climate action templates and resources that were developed were about ensuring that we could support and empower all libraries and all library workers with reliable, trusted resources that could address sort of that lack of expertise element that was identified in our national survey. And thirdly, SDG 13 from a sustainable cities perspective, ensuring that we positioned ourselves to be able to support eco-resiliency and social and our role as social infrastructure. And the collaboration toolkit really is about, again, speaking to some of those barriers that were identified around capacity and expertise, giving our community tools that they could engage collaboratively with community partners and build effective partnerships and collaborations as it relates to climate action and environmental literacy. And so the climate action brief is really the foundational document that we started with. As previously mentioned, it is available in French and English. And our focus was really on ensuring that it used clear and accessible language that was going to be widely available to all library workers within our library spaces. In working both with our committee and through the findings of the national survey, in many organizations, if they did not have if they do have specific climate or environmental related expertise, it tends to sit with one individual. And it can be really hard for a library and our sector as a whole to build capacity if we are relying on a single role or a single expert. So the intention with this climate action brief was to really take the available information that has been published through the federal government, as well as many of our library collaborators, both IFLA and Michelle previously mentioned the British Columbia Library Association has done a lot of really important work in Canada around climate action, as well as ALA's calls to action, and ensure that we could aggregate some of those resources in a way that it would be broadly accessible to a library audience. In addition, our federal government has lots of really valuable data and resources related to climate action, but many of those documents are hundreds of pages long. So when we think about the lack of capacity that was highlighted, within the majority of library institutions in Canada, people don't have the time or capacity to distill that type of lengthy scientific data. And we really strive to make sure that we could give libraries and library workers entry points into that information. In addition, the document also includes a number of references for key climate action resources. And then the two additional resources that were created were the Climate Action Guide and you see an excerpt of it here on the left. And our focus with the Climate Action Guide is recognizing, again, from the results of our national survey that expertise was identified as an issue. We have many organizations working on climate action and environmental literacy in Canada. And so the Climate Action Guide is really intended to be a toolkit that, again, supports all libraries and all library workers about building meaningful and successful collaborations in this space. And then second to that, we created the CAFE template, which feeds really nicely into what Michelle highlighted with the climate anxiety piece, recognizing that that's a key theme where libraries have a potential role to play. This guide is intended to help people create library cafe programs where we can create a space for people to discuss and share their concerns about climate anxiety and work through some of those discussions and thoughts in a collaborative, supportive environment. And again, from members of our Climate Action Committee, we saw this as a tool that was being both used in academic settings as well as in community, school, and public library spaces. And then as a call to action out of this entire grant initiative, we have a Climate Action Week in Canada, which is the first week in November. And this is an initiative that was created by the British Columbia Library Association initially. And it's really about consolidating all of the efforts that are happening from coast to coast and creating a week-long event where we can amplify the role of libraries in the climate action space. So the outcome of the call to action that we included in the climate action brief is really hoping to engage more libraries in participating in this annual initiative. So as a next step for CFLA, similar to OLA, we've got lots of synergies here across our associations in Canada. CFLA has done a bit of a restructuring as well. We are a large geographic country, or geographically large. We are relatively small in terms of our population. So similar to the experience that OLA was finding with their committee structure, at CFLA we recognized working across 4 time zones. The committee structure was not necessarily creating the format that could move some of our policy goals forward. So at present, we have a task force that's looking at creating a national peer-to-peer forum for information sharing and collaboration. And we've also entered into a formal collaboration with our federal ministry responsible for this file, which is Environment and Climate Change Canada. And so through the grant process, Environment and Climate Change Canada actually published their first Canadian National Environmental Literacy Strategy. And it's really under the umbrella of that strategy that we've entered into this collaboration with the 𝗃𝗃𝗃. And our intention with this 3-year commitment is to look for opportunities to build public awareness about the importance of nature conservation and climate change to help Canada meet its biodiversity and climate goals. It's also intended to help mobilize information sharing through trusted library networks. And that's why CFLA is such a critical anchor for this initiative to help promote collective action on nature-based solutions. And we also hope to reach new and broader audiences through that trusted library network. I think, working with our partners at the federal government, there is a real understanding of the critical role that libraries play in both advancing literacy and addressing some of the misinformation that is really rampant, particularly in the climate action space. So while we're in the early days of this collaboration, we're really looking forward to amplifying this work and continuing to advance CFLA's commitment to this policy pillar. And with that, that ends sort of our formal slide and presentation, but we would welcome opportunity to answer any questions that anyone has related to any of these initiatives.
Okay, so if you have questions, please put the questions in the Q&A section of Zoom. It's at the bottom of the function bar, so it would be there. That's a long question. So Michelle, later are you able to see the Q&A? That's a long one, so I'm going to read that out loud. So hello from London. These are brilliant projects. Thank you for sharing. A field question. It's a long field, but okay. So there are one question for OLA. How is the climate action community governed? Is it chaired by a member of the OLA, and does the group organize climate resilience events or initiatives itself?
So right now, governed is a formal word for a loose structure. There is a facilitator of the group, and it is also supported by an OLA staff representative. The facilitators right now, I believe there are 2, and they came out of the committee that previously existed. But the idea, and we're not alone in this model. I know there are many associations that have communities of practice. The idea is really for them to be sustainable within the group, to draw leadership from within the group, and to decide what they want to do. They could end up deciding as a membership to have monthly Zoom gatherings. We save space for our annual conference for them to meet in person. But the work that they do, the events that they hold, the conversations is really, it's really driven by the membership. OLA staff, like I said, we're doing what we can to support it. And right now we're building on the topics that were identified at the superintendent's.
Okay, so we have 3 more questions from the same person. It's for CFLA. So how is engagement with the climate resources created by CFLA and feedback on their implementation or effectiveness assessed? And do you want to go it one by one or all together?
Yeah.
One by one. Let's do it one by one.
Let's start with that one. The project, we completed these resources and they were published on CFLA's website in fall of 2025. So it's early days in terms of being able to, truly assess their effectiveness and that'll be one of the pieces that we'll have to identify, recognizing that CFLA has sort of moved away from this committee structure, but looking for opportunities to assess their effectiveness is something that we definitely need to do looking forward. One of the ways that we have a little bit of an opportunity to do that is through one of our member associations, BCLA. As part of their annual Climate Action Week, they do an annual evaluation. So the resources from CFLA are available through that website. There's an opportunity for us to learn from our member association, but it's an important question and definitely something at a CFLA level that we need to keep on the radar in terms of moving forward.
Okay, we have two more. So don't panic, we will get to them. Could the climate action brief be used to influence other libraries in other countries' strategies for becoming more climate resilient?
Great question. And I think definitely one of the areas of focus that the committee had in terms of developing these resources, which is difficult in terms of a science topic, was trying to ensure some longevity of the resource in terms of ensuring that it would have a useful life for a number of years. So we very much tried to zero in on content that was going to be reliable and persistent and meaningful. While it definitely has some Canadian context and focus in terms of the federal research and documentation that is listed. As I mentioned, we did also look to IFLA, to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the American Library Association's call to actions. So I do believe that there is content and relevance to the document beyond Canada's sort of geographic borders that could be valuable to other libraries around the world as you look to advance this work.
Yeah, I want to add, it's like a comment, not a question for me. It's like, you gave a really, really good structure or know-how how to do that and what you have done so far. I just want to add that if it's a different context, even in Canada, in each community, they are so different. We just have to find a way to make that work for the context, not the other way around. Otherwise, nothing will work. It really depends on networks and also the municipality and civil societies, other organizations, and all that in order to make that happen. So I want to add that that's not a prescription, it's an inspiration, not a prescription. So yeah.
Well, and even within Canada, with the Climate Action Committee, we had membership and representation from coast to coast, and how climate change is presenting itself in Canada, really varies in different parts of the country. So we, in the West, as well as the Far East, we've seen a number of years with intensive forest fire seasons. In other parts of the country, we're seeing climate change present itself in different ways. So I think that's where, the Canadian context, I think in some ways does present, as you say, an interesting sort of overview or perspective, because even within our own borders, there's so much variation.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that my cousin commands helicopters to put out forest fire in BC. So it's just like, yeah, it's almost never reachable because it's always out there putting out fires. So no, it's like really the disasters, it really depends on where you are. So it's like it won't be applicable. It may not be applicable to the West if you're using something from the east of Canada. So it just just context. So, okay. So the next question is there a particular success case study of initiatives like the Climate Cafe, and have these cafes led to community climate resilience actions?
I think our intention with these resources in this toolkit was really to make sure that the resources were scalable to all sorts of environments and spaces. So in terms of case studies, I think probably our strongest case study is the Climate Action Week that BCLA guides, and we've seen that team has shared some real successes in terms of talking about various sort of events and initiatives. One of our early projects with our collaboration with Environment and Climate Change Canada was around Earth Month, and they developed a resource that we were able to pilot and distribute through a number of public libraries. It was a family-friendly resource that focused on nature deficiency and empowering kids to understand and families to understand the importance of making time to be in nature. So I think, again, sort of coast to coast, we're seeing academic libraries and public libraries and school libraries implement these tools in all sorts of different ways. I think one of our challenges as an association is collecting those stories. And one of the tools that we've actually been pointing people to in terms of sharing those stories is the IFLA SDG map of the world, and trying to encourage our member libraries to share some of those case studies through that platform.
I think that's a good segue to the next question. Is any library-based outreach activities in relation to raising awareness on climate action? That may be my favorite question, because that's a very much science engagement problem issue that scientists have. So just maybe that could be something libraries can address. So maybe we can answer this one.
Sure, I can give an initial jump in if you want to add, Michelle. So again, as part of the collaboration with Environment and Climate Change Canada, that's one of the outreach opportunities that we're hoping to engage. The federal government of Canada, within that department, has a huge number of scientists on staff who are doing really important work and research. And so one of the intentions is to create opportunities for those scientists to be able to connect with community. So as part of Earth Month, and it was a very small pilot, we did have a couple of libraries who were able to virtually have scientists included in part of their programming. As I mentioned in my comments, we do have a really robust network of nonprofit organizations across the country that are deeply engaged in community work, and a number of libraries from coast to coast actively partner with those organizations, both to bring them in as well as to get out to community to promote the library's role in environmental literacy. So I think there, as you say, Anna, there's a huge opportunity here, and it's definitely something. And it was really a goal with this grant project, was to create some resources that would help to address some of those self-identified issues of sort of lack of confidence and lack of expertise. So we strive to give people a baseline so that they could feel more confident and competent in engaging in some of those really important dialogues.
And oh, sorry. You may go.
I think the way that we talk about outreach is different in this conversation with in our different sectors. I think the way that colleges and universities are able to have conversations and host events around climate action are maybe handled a bit differently than how I'm hearing are being handled in public libraries. Certainly, we can't ignore the fact that the phrase climate action can be considered quite politically divisive. And so even just the way that people are describing the events that they're having, the conversations that they're hosting in libraries, I was talking to a library in Southwestern Ontario, and the librarian was saying, you know, we like to lead our older adults in conversations reminiscing about what were the flowers that were growing when you were young and what was the weather like, which kind of leads into conversations of how things have changed, of what, you know, of how climate action is in, you know, all around us, and we can't ignore it, but without using those words, because sometimes that can be received quite negatively from members of the community. I also think, just in connection with the next question, which was around library of things, I think one of the most practical ways that libraries can engage in this work and do outreach is, and contribute to environmental sustainability, really is shifting our communities from individual ownership to more of that shared access mentality, which is really, that's what we've been doing with books for ages, right? But to get them thinking about how we do that with all of our library of things, and many libraries now, certainly in Ontario, have libraries that have tools and sewing machines and camping equipment and musical instruments. And we know that I just borrowed, what did I borrow? A CO2 monitor a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, the number of things that libraries are offering through those library of things, I think, is really having such an impact on our communities and certainly demonstrating environmental sustainability.
Good. Maybe I can just read the whole question that you mentioned just now, so everyone knows. Given the high carbon footprint of air travel, is the OLA or CFLA considering how to support members in flying less and or hosting more events online, both to reduce their footprint and also make events more accessible?
Yeah, that's a great question, Elizabeth. And certainly that's something that we're always thinking about, not just because of climate reasons, but also post-pandemic. We know people have health concerns, people have accessibility concerns. So the OLA conferences, most of the programming that we do is actually virtual because of those considerations, and also just because of geography. As Lita mentioned, this is a giant country, and even within our province, travel from one end to the other can be quite intensive and time consuming. So we aim to make the majority of our program accessible to virtual audiences. I will say that is sometimes limiting. If you've tried to organize your own virtual event that mimics an in-person, it is difficult to do. It's difficult to have a quality experience for both the virtual attendees and the physical in-person attendees at the same time, but it's something we're always looking to improve upon, and to make sure that we can have something for both audiences.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
Oops, sorry.
CFLA. Oh, sorry, Anna.
No, it's
from
okay. It's okay.
A CFLA perspective, the association operates almost entirely virtually and online, just because of some of those elements that Michelle alluded to. And as part of this initiative, we did do some webinars to launch the toolkit that we were able, but covering sort of 5 time zones, we find it is really the only way for us to effectively collaborate, is to be able to operate online, and you know, the tools that have enabled that to become a more seamless experience is definitely something that we've benefited from through this process.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. And there's one more question, two more questions in the chat. And has there been a difference in response from communities between rural and urban communities?
I think definitely when we did the initial survey, there was some consistency in themes, but even across the country, some of the provinces that our Climate Action Committee members were from, that are more rurally representative, they really highlight some of those capacity challenges and the more pervasive impacts of climate change. And so we definitely develop the resources with that variation of capacity in mind. You know, for many of our rural communities, the folks who are in library spaces are wearing many hats. So to try and make sure that the tools were meaningful for them, but at the same time, could be adapted to meet some of the concerns that were most pressing in their communities.
Okay, so yeah, because it's like it's a less dense place and a very, very dense place. The concerns are different. You cannot use the same, how to say, the same protocols to solve. I mean, it's when it's the same problem, the context is so different. It goes back to what we said earlier. It just cannot be copy and pasted just directly. It has to be adapted to the local needs and interests. And it also bridges back to what Michelle mentioned earlier. We don't always have to say that we are doing climate actions when we're doing climate actions. Honestly, it gets boring after you saying 3 times. And I said honestly 3 times, you get bored already. So we don't always have to have this like in your face climate action besides in order to do that. So we can do that in a very subtle way and it's still climate action. So okay, now there's one more question in the Q&A. Our city has a research university that does a lot of work around climate change, Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. I assume it's the United States. And mitigating flooding is a major policy concern. Do you have experience bringing universities in and any guidance about that? Can be tricky to find the right people to talk to at a large university, even if you know there is interest.
Yeah, thanks for that question. We were really fortunate with the Climate Action Committee that a number of our members were coming from an academic setting, and appreciate the question. I know one of the members of the former Climate Action Committee is currently doing some PhD work on this issue, so I'd be happy to be able to make the connection to them. I work in the community of Burlington, which is not far from Toronto, and flooding has been a significant issue for us. We're seeing, heavier rainfalls, and with that rainfall, the inability to sort of manage the water flow associated with that. So I think that those extreme weather events and their impacts on communities and libraries was definitely part of the scope of that work, and particularly with the task force that's looking at a peer-to-peer network. They're looking for opportunities to kind of connect those academic librarians and some of those researchers, as well as some of the individuals that are working on the ground. Example that comes to mind as we've referenced, there's been some really difficult forest fire seasons in Canada over the last number of years, and particularly in BC. That's resulted in, I can think of at least 2 public libraries that have been burnt to the ground. So being able to connect academics and researchers with those practitioners to both kind of capture the impact of these extreme weather events, but then also to collaborate to look at moving forward and rebuilding in ways that are going to be more climate resilient. And again, some of the impacts of these extreme weather events on community access to their library, and it can go on and on about what that means. But yeah, and we've been really fortunate, and I know I think it's really a benefit to be able to bridge across sector and bring that expertise, that academic expertise and that research expertise, and integrate it with frontline practitioners.
Okay, good. I have a question actually. So it's kind of related. So I know that that's at least one module on public programming in most library and information science degree programs. So I wonder nowadays whether there's something in the module that focuses more on climate science or more broadly STEM programming, or even science engagement in those programs, in those LIS programs in Canada.
I'm not sure if you're aware of anything, Michelle, but I'm not aware of anything sort of formally built into the curriculum. I think it does sort of. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that could be asked of so many subject areas. And I think the message that comes through is librarians don't have to be the expert in the thing that they are programming. I think what we are exceptional at is being connectors and bringing people together that we know are the researchers, the politicians, the community organizers, the residents, to help learn from each other. That's what we do. And so applying those principles across different subject areas is something that we should all know how to do together.
Okay, good. Thank you. And so I think we still have time for one more question because we have 3 more minutes left. So if anyone has any question, we will welcome the last one. I mean, if you don't have question, I have so many. So it's a more like okay, so that may have to jog the memory. So I wonder when did libraries in Canada start taking climate action? So when did the actions begin to take shape? Is it before the SDGs were established, or when was that time the tipping point to just massively do something like that in terms of climate actions? What is that?
I think definitely some of the national work happening through the federal government, aligning the government of Canada's climate action plans with the United Nations SDGs was definitely a driver from a CFLA perspective. And again, it's just one of those places where it makes sense to other collaborators and our federal stakeholders that libraries have a place in this conversation, because there was an early report that really spoke to and drew out CFLA's work in this space in the very early days of our committee forming. And I just want to give a bit of a shout out because looking at the chat now, I can see that many members of CFLA's Climate Action Committee are actually on the call and are chiming in with some of the great work that's happening across Canada. So thanks, Helen, and thanks, Dan, for all of the work that they did, both formally as part of the committee and this they can continue to do in this space.
Okay, so yeah, so I realized I didn't fully ask a question from the audience just now, so let me just do this. The question is, I am wondering about the practical environmental efforts of libraries like Library of Things of other circular practices, swaps or repair cafes.
Yeah, and we spoke to that, I think already.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely something, again, that we're seeing, in academic settings and public library settings.
Okay, good. So, okay, so the libraries are also, a lot of them are doing like what's that? Library of Things, swaps and repair cafes. That do you think it's like a paradigm shift to this kind of activities, or is it like a trend, or is it really changing to that direction? How do you see that?
As Michelle said, it kind of takes us back to our roots in terms of even some circular economy is something that libraries have been embracing for a very long time. I think there's increasing awareness. I think there's increasing need. In Canada, we are like many places around the world, struggling with the volatility of the global economy, and that's translating into some very direct impacts for Canadians in terms of a high cost of living. So people are really looking for new ways to connect and access the resources that they need. And I think there's also probably a bit of a response in terms of people looking to connect in person and do things with their hands, and not sort of be as reliant on online and social media as the only vehicles for some of those connections. So yeah, I don't know that there's sort of one root cause there, Anna, but it's definitely something that we're seeing increasing interest and involvement with.
Okay, good. So yeah, the time is up. I have to apologize. So if you have further questions, please send us an email. We will try to address them the best we can. And I really have to apologize again. We really have to close the webinar, and the webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel afterwards, and probably in a week. I will try to have it ready with subtitles within a week. So please watch out in your email because I will also send you a notification when it's ready. And again, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And also thank you for our helpers today, Diana and also 𝗵𝗶, to monitor the chat. And yes, so thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now.